Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hi there.
So just as a reminder and housekeeping, as we have everyone join us, we'll have you all kind of joining on mute. And if you want to keep yourself on mute through the evening so we can make sure that we can hear the speaker, that'd be wonderful. If you have any questions, we would love them. The more interactive, the better for this. So feel free to write into the chat, and I am going to be the liaison for everyone who's writing into the chat. So feel free to, you can either direct message me, Dr. Young, or you could write into the group and I will make sure I speak up and discuss it with my co-host today, Sierra Cameron.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sierra.
You want to jump in and introduce yourself, Sierra?
Yeah, so my name is Sierra. I've been working with Dr. Young in Collaborative for about a year now. I am now a functional medicine health coach through the Institute of Functional Medicine. I also work as a registered nurse, and this is going to be a lecture on creating healthy habits and general wellness coaching. So there will be a couple of points during the lecture, where it might be helpful for people to jot down some of their ideas, or we have a couple of exercises throughout the lecture. So if you just have like a pen and a piece of paper handy, and there'll be a couple of points where it might be helpful to share your thoughts. So feel free, like Dr. Young said, to put them in the chat, and we're happy to answer and stop, and we'll have some questions at the end.
Awesome. I'm so excited to do this with Sierra. So for those who don't know me, I'm Lauren Young. I am a naturopathic physician at Collaborative Natural Health Partners in Manchester, Connecticut. I am the first of several naturopathic physicians who are medical staff with ECHN, which is pretty exciting. And one of our main passions is bringing wellness education to the community. So that's why we're doing this tonight. And I've gotten to work with Sierra for a while because health is a journey and no one's perfect. Actually, I don't think perfect isn't healthy in my mind. And so we're really we're committed to constantly improving ourselves and setting goals for ourselves. And that's kind of what we're diving into tonight. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to write them down and send them to us. And otherwise we'll get started.
Awesome. All right. So when we think of wellness, there's so many components that go into wellness. It's an interconnected web. And when one strand of that web gets tugged, it can really throw the whole web off kilter. Sometimes we really need to focus our energy on one specific part of our wellness, while other times we need to take a bigger aerial view and look at our life to know what we really need to work on. So this right here you're looking at is a wellness wheel, and it's a tool to, kind of do a self-assessment of what your overall wellness looks like. So I'll just kind of dip into each category here. So our health and our well-being, kind of your general overall feeling, how you feel about your health, and how you would like to experience your health maybe 5 years from now. And then our family and friends, how fulfilling are your relationship with your family and friends, and the level of closeness and support you feel in this category. Next, we have personal growth and development, the time and energy we spend on making ourselves better, looking at what we do on a daily basis for, personal growth, whether it's reading or some sort of education. Our partner and our significant other also plays a huge role in our health and well-being and our satisfaction in that aspect of our life. Also, having time for fun and recreation and joy, and being able to, let loose and just, experience those small joys in life. Our physical environment, so where we live, how like our access to certain things, if we have access to nature, or if you're satisfied with your living environment. Also our career, is it a good fit for you? Do you feel like you're connected with your meaning and purpose when you're at work? And then money is, the stress that we feel around money if we have the ability to take care of our basic needs. So I want everyone to just kind of look at our wellness wheel here and maybe give yourself just an overall score of your satisfaction. And then if you have a piece of paper, taking the time to connect those dots on that wheel and see, when you look at it as a whole picture, would your wheel be able to turn?
I think that's a really interesting part with the wellness wheel, is that it's the evenness of it all, like making sure that nothing's like significantly off with it. For example, like, if you have everything going for you, but your health is off, that divot is really going to impact a lot of things in your life. And as making sure that it's, wellness is a holistic picture, and it's not just one aspect of things. The first time I ever did this wheel, I did it, and I loved a lot of things, but I didn't love my kitchen. I would come into my house and I would like, there was no mud room, and I would like have to dump all my stuff, and like my kids would visit me like right in the and so when we like got a mud room and redid our kitchen so the flow is better, like it sounds silly, but that like up leveled my happiness so much. And it's one of those things where you're like, it doesn't have to be a complete kitchen makeover, but it can be as simple as like, if I rearrange my room, or if I decluttered, I mean, that's a huge one. Decluttering can really up level your physical environment, or get a standing desk. That kind of stuff can really make a big difference to your, and so you realize that that divot can really impact a lot of aspects of your life for sure.
Yeah, and that's such a great small example of just a little adjustment in one area can really impact your whole wheel. And then, it's interesting to think about at different point in our lives, our wheel can shift. Even, month to month, our wheel can shift significantly. Even, some people love the snow, some people love the warm, and that can really impact your physical environment. Or if you're dumping a lot of energy into one area of the wheel and neglecting another one, it can really just cause a pretty dramatic shift.
I think that what you just tapped on was so key, because so when I work with the residency program, the doctors that are at ECHN, the first year of their residency, we would do a retreat, and we would have them all do this. And then every year when we did the retreat, we would save a copy of it. And then so at the end of their third year of residency, we'd give them all of their versions, and they would dramatically shift. And inevitably, like, they're a little overworked, they're a little underpaid, they're a little like, like, but it was interesting that like it did shift dramatically even with those aspects. So knowing that things are temporary is really important when you're working on goals too, knowing that you're going to be able to shift this stuff.
Absolutely.
Uh,
All right. So by looking at that wheel and, kind of taking a little bit of an assessment of what your life is looking like now, it might have sparked some, maybe some visuals in your brain of, what is your vision for health and wellness? And everybody's vision for health and wellness can be completely different. So another opportunity for you to maybe take out your pen and paper and just kind of write some keywords for what your specific vision of health and wellness looks like, what you're doing, who you're with, how you're spending your time, what your energy feels like, who you're connected with, what meaning and purpose you're bringing to other people around you and yourself. So just take a minute or so to put some of those visuals on the piece of paper. And this is really going to be key for developing new habits and, really starting with the end in mind.
I read an article recently about mindfulness and health and wellness, and how to like kind of visualize what you want. And it was interesting because one of the comments was, if you ever notice the feeling of jealousy, that's a sign of something you want in your life that you're missing, right? So if you can think about any time that you've been feeling jealous, whether it's, I've been feeling it, I don't know about you guys, the rest of us, like travel, right? Like COVID left us all like in our homes, and now that I have a nice kitchen, it's okay, but like in our homes a little bit more. And so travel just seems like something like I really want. And so that is something that I've found that I like when I noticed the jealousy feeling, I was like, okay, that's something I have to put into my vision is I want to travel more. So you can check that with yourself, whether it's a coworker that you want to like strive to build a skill set, or it's whatever, when you notice that feeling, that's another sign that's something that you want to change for yourself.
Yeah, that's a great example. All right. So when we think about creating habits, I'm sure we've all, made a New Year's resolution or told ourselves, we're absolutely going to do something. But at the end of the day, change can be pretty difficult. It's not easy. However, throughout this lecture, we're going to definitely give you some strategies to make these habits lasting, make these something that you can keep yourself accountable to. But we just wanted to share some facts that, so we had a study that showed that, for New Year's resolutions, about 23% of people gave up just after 1 week and 81% gave up after 2 years. So those are pretty, startling statistics, and just shows that like creating healthy habits can be difficult, but in the right way and with commitment and with support and, breaking down a little bit of the psychology around them, they absolutely can be done.
Awesome. If anyone wants to share, you can either direct message me privately or you can write into the group. Like if you had a New Year's resolution and what it was, that'd be kind of fun to share.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or if
Yeah.
anyone has
Did
one
you
for
have
this year.
did you have one, Sierra?
I did not have one this year, but I'm actually really proud of one that I completed at the end of this year. So I have a really big hankering for potato chips, and I was eating them like almost every day when I got home from work, and they were just addicting. So that was my New Year's resolution. I allowed myself to eat any other chip besides potato chips, so I made it really specific. And I did not eat any potato chips last year. So I was super proud that I kept that one.
That's impressive. Good job.
That's my weakness, crunchy and salty.
So yeah, so there's adding or there's subtracting when it comes to goals, and we'll get into some more of the SMART goals that you make. One of mine last year, I don't know if I did as completely, but was to be bad at something on a regular basis, because it meant that I was trying new things. And so sorry to anyone who saw some of my other lectures. I'm just kidding, but like but I think like my point was like I was I have a high standard for myself, and I was staying in my safe zone a little bit more than I wanted to be. So I was like, all right, you got to get out there and ice skate when you're not good at it.
For sure.
So yeah.
So anybody have any they want to share that they've either tried or to
Donna,
try?
yeah, we have one gratitude journal, which I love, that's so therapeutic and
Oh,
healthy. And I love picking up a hobby when you're feeling like snacking or when you're feeling stressing. So like crochet is a great one. I picked up knitting the same kind of way, keep your hands busy, and especially if you're watching TV or something passive. Oh, and meditating daily, that's a beautiful one as well. Awesome. That's an impressive one. That's hard to do. Great job. But they're very doable at the same time. If you like, meditation every day and no potato chips every day, that's great. So yeah, so let's dive into the next steps. What makes change difficult, Sierra?
yeah. So a lot of times we think it's just going to be easy. So that would be wishful thinking. We don't really put the necessary thought around it, and we just think it's going to come naturally without, setting ourselves up with the right steps to be successful. Also, if we view it as a punishment, so using negative reinforcement as opposed to a positive reinforcement is not going to be as as sustainable. A little
Mhm.
tongue twister there for me. So not focusing, on the positive aspects of it, but, talking negatively to ourselves, or, doing something really extreme, like an extreme diet. Um, it's just not going to be as successful in the long term. And then also keeping our goals realistic. So if we have an unattainable goal, such as, here this example is running 5 miles every day. If, in fact, we just need to get our shoes on and, maybe run or do some stretching for exercise. So we just have to be realistic and break down our habits into, small steps. And also, if we don't do this unattainable goal, such as running 5 miles every day, we're probably going to be more likely to be upset at ourselves and go back to punishing ourselves, or give up, totally, because you didn't miss, or you didn't hit your target for that one day. So it's just going to lead to more like, I like to think of it as, keeping the promises you make to yourself. So if it's an unattainable goal, you're just not going to be building that confidence in yourself to keep the habit going. So here, oh, you can go ahead, Dr.
No,
Young.
I was going to agree that, yeah, exactly. Like that negative self-talk that we all have at points in our life, right? Gets fed by when we let ourselves down with things like this. And so making goals and achieving them isn't about willpower. And I think that's a big part of this message, is like setting yourself up for success, right? Which I love, all the message you're doing.
Yeah, and building that like positive momentum. So, when we do these unattainable things, we're just setting ourselves up to not, build that momentum, or, knock ourselves down when we don't need to, because, what we originally set out to do might not be realistic now, but we could definitely build up to it.
Awesome.
All right. So these are just some basic example of habits. So habits are rituals and behaviors that we perform automatically. So walking, showering, brushing our teeth in the morning. Maybe we get stressed and we start biting our nails, or go out for a cigarette, or we cook, or we order takeout. Also, I really like the one listed here at the bottom. We automatically compliment people when, we like something. So all of these are something that, can eventually be automatic, or there's something that we need to strive to work to make automatic. So after, kind of hearing some of these thoughts and going through, what our habits are and this list, I just would like everybody to think of a habit that they want to change most, whether it's adding something positive in their life, or subtracting something that you would prefer to do without, that you just can't seem to break that habit. So just kind of keep something in mind that would bring you closer to your vision of health and wellness. All right, so this is a little strategy of creating new habits. So when we think about our habits, there's always an anchor moment. So this is something that's going to remind you to do the behavior. You can also kind of think of it as a trigger. So every, morning when you wake up, if you, use the bathroom, if you immediately brush your teeth after that. So the anchor moment would be, going into the bathroom and then maybe washing your hands. And then after that, you always, brush your teeth. So it's the thing that happens right before you do the behavior. So next is the tiny behavior. So that's when you're actually performing the behavior. And, like it says directly after the anchor moment. And then when we are trying to create a new behavior, it's really important that we celebrate immediately after the new behavior. It can be something as simple as, smiling at yourself in the mirror, or saying a mantra to yourself, like, great job, or you did it, you can keep doing it. So when we think about wanting to create a new behavior that we don't have quite yet, we need to link it to an anchor that reminds us and prompts us to do that behavior. So say you wanted to, start exercising and you want to do it first thing in the morning. Maybe laying out your clothes the night ahead can be your anchor moment. And then when you wake up, that's like a prompt to put on those exercise clothes as a visual cue. And then the big thing here with tiny behaviors is they need to be something really small. So with the example of the exercise clothes, you would celebrate right after you put the clothes on. You don't have to, go for the 5-mile run, just celebrate that you did it, and you'll be much more likely to, continue on that path for the day of getting your exercise in. And, it's just enough to celebrate right then and there. And that's going to help create that positive momentum that we talked about.
So says Sierra, I am not the CrossFitter you are, and that is my exact goal right now. And so we'll talk about this one because it works out perfectly. So I'll wear as much of my workout outfit as possible, and then wake up, roll out of bed. And my whole thing is I have to put on my sneakers, and then I get to celebrate. And then, but at that point, right, you're already like there. So you're ready to go out and exercise at least a little bit. And then I give myself some options. And then, so there's a lot of research on getting yourself to exercise. And we have a lot of motivators, right? We know it's good for our health. We know it'll make our body look better. It'll make our body feel better. But the thing that actually gets you to exercise, according to the research, is how you feel after you exercise. Have you guys all seen that, like on social media, there's that like the little goofy thing where it's like, I'm going for my stupid walk for my stupid mental health. And then there's people trudging around all the place. So they've shown that like we move our bodies, we feel better. It's like a no duh, but yet all of us sit all day. And so what you want to do is really attach yourself to the outcome of like, I'm going to feel better right after I do this. And it works so well. And so there, you want to make sure that you have that attachment to that, like, I'm going to feel better. And part of the celebration is just that exercise right afterward. And so I've gotten past the celebrating that I've tied my shoes, which I'm very proud of. And so what I've done is, so you get dopamine is your main neurotransmitter that gives you that reward boost when you do something, or let's be honest, if you buy something online, you get that little dopamine boost of like, thank you, Amazon, and so we get that from exercise as well. And so what I've been doing is I have a big whiteboard in my office in my house, and I'll just put like a little heart for my dopamine heart of like self-care today. I went out and did my workout. And so every little dopamine heart I have on my whiteboard shows that I did that. So that, if there's a day that I have to go deal with my kids, or I have an early meeting or something, I can't exercise, but I have all those other days to remind me that I did it, So again, tying yourself to like that little celebration is so key, and making sure it's right then and there. It can't be the like swimsuit you bought yourself for June that you think you're going to fit into, because that's not really realistic. It's got to be that like, I'm going to feel great in 30 minutes if I just go do this. So I love all of this.
Yeah, that's a great point. So when we are trying to move ourselves, towards a different vision of health and wellness or a new goal, finding the right behaviors is going to be key for us. So something that works for somebody else, whether it's, exercising or dieting or whatever thing you want to add into your life, it might not work for you. So I want to go over the difference between our aspirations and our behaviors, and then we'll do this little exercise. So an aspiration is something that's going to be a little bit more abstract, like I want to have more energy, I want to look better, I want to sleep more, I want to get straight A's, something of that nature that is kind of like intangible. So maybe that might have come up in your vision of health and wellness, of, how you want to feel or something like that. And then behaviors are something that you can do right here, right now, or, at a specific point in time. So I can, prep my meals. I can, meditate for 5 minutes every day. So it's something super concrete, something that you can act upon, and you can basically check off if you did it or you didn't. So we're just going to run through a little exercise right now. If you guys have, a piece of paper out, or, you can make notes on your phone, whatever is, easiest. So, I'm going to ask you to draw a cloud on a piece of paper, and inside that cloud, you're going to write your aspiration. So this is how you want to feel, how you want to present yourself in the world. What is just going to make you feel like you're living your best self, like, just, that visualization that we kind of talked about in the beginning. So after you come up with that, you're going to switch and you're going to write 10 behaviors that would lead you to the aspiration. So if your aspiration is, for example, I want to sleep better and have more energy, you could write, I'm going to put blackout curtains on. I'm going to get in my bed at 9 o'clock every night. I'm going to, maybe play white noise. I'm going to exercise in the day so that I'll sleep better at night. So anything at all that will lead you closer to that aspiration. I'll give you guys, a second or so to do that. Does anyone have any questions so far?
I love the suggestion of the live in the moment is one of the things would that be a behavior, do you think, or I think aspiration, wouldn't you live in the moment? Yeah.
Yeah. So and then some of the behaviors around that are like, what can you do to keep yourself more present? Like, put your phone down when you're with other people.
Yeah. So I would say, is it okay to have
So the aspiration is going to be like your main thing in the cloud. And then around the cloud is going to be behaviors that will bring you closer to that aspiration.
So I love the one of sleep. I feel like everyone has one of, like, I have a lot of patients with weight loss being one, or feeling more fit in general would be a good one. You could put exercise as a piece of it, and there could be all sorts of other pieces to that as well. Living in the moment would be a great aspiration though. And then you could, with that, be stress reduction and less like electronics. That would be a great one as well.
So once you have about 10 or more behaviors, this is going to be a little bit of a filtering system to find like your golden behaviors, which are really going to be the most impactful for you. So you're going to put a star under or next to anything that's going to be highly effective in reaching your aspiration. So what do you think is going to be the biggest thing to move the needle for you? So just filter it out and put a star around 4 or 5 that you think that are really going to move you in the right direction. And then once you've done that, you're just going to circle any behaviors that you think you can easily get yourself to do. So say your goal is to exercise more, and you say, I'm going to run 5 miles every day. So you might have put a star around that because it might be really effective, but it might not be a golden behavior for you because it's probably not going to be something you can easily get yourself to do every day.
There's a cute phrase in our office called holistic but realistic. Like, you has to be sustainable or it's not going to be effective, right? Yeah. So that's a perfect example. Yeah. Yeah.
So then when you have done that, any behaviors that you have a circle and a star around are going to be your golden behaviors. So this is going to be something that is going to move you in the right direction towards, that aspiration, and is something that, realistically you can accomplish, realistically you can put into place.
Awesome. It's interesting how like we get so reactive instead of proactive, and just slowing down and being like critically thinking of like setting yourself up for success instead of like, I got to start working on this, can
Yeah.
really align things and make it a lot more efficient and useful.
All right. And this is just a little bit more information on habits. So habits are formed because they're repetitive patterns in the brain, and they're designed to satisfy our needs in an energy efficient way. So they become pretty automatic for us. So this is a way of our brain conserving energy that allows us to spend more energy on certain tasks, like learning new habits and developing more complex thinking. So the process of actually forming habits does require a lot of energy, but once they are formed, it's actually energy conserving. So it won't be as difficult for us to do them once, our brain has wired them in as habits. All right. So we're also going to talk about a SMART goal, which is, a way of setting goals that really helps us make them really concrete, less abstract, and gives us, a general roadmap of how to achieve this goal. So it just breaks down the goal into some specific steps where we really put a lot of thought behind them that is going to, help us, stay accountable to it.
I love SMART goals and I love implementing this. Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty. So we can head over to the S, I think, on the next slide.
Okay, sorry. There we go. Yeah.
No problem. All right. So the S in SMART stands for specific. And we can think about this as a mission statement for your goal. So when we are, creating our SMART goal, we are going to answer these questions like the popular double W questions: who, what, when, where, and why. So really identifying these key components. And I really like to focus in on the why. So a lot of times, and we've kind of talked about this and touched on this, why we want to create this goal, and really linking it back to your vision of health and wellness, and, what it could mean to yourself, to your family, to the people around you, if you're accountable to this goal.
Mhm.
All right. And then, is this goal attainable and is this realistic? So how important is this goal to you? And what are some of the things you can do to make it attainable? What skills do you need to attain this goal? And kind of like we talked about so far, is that goals are meant to inspire motivation and not be discouraging. So if that means breaking it into a smaller step, and have not having it to be like overwhelming, that's going to be a really good place to start. So focus on the positives, focus on the first step. And even if we have a big, large goal that could take, maybe a year, we can even break that down even further to different milestones, and, even setting up a SMART goal around each different milestone. And then I just kind of like to foresee any obstacles that will, potentially be in the way at this time. So, and, kind of navigating how to get through them. And I'm sorry, I kind of jumped ahead.
Okay.
So I'm also going to touch on, I kind of was talking about this slide first. My
No,
bad.
yeah. Well, no, attainable and realistic and measurable makes almost so much sense to be together, right? Because
Yeah, for
like
sure.
you got to make sure that it's something that you're getting better at. And one thing I would really emphasize is, I know pounds on a scale are there, but I feel like that is not a great tool to use to testing your how you feel in your body, like feeling stronger, or
Absolutely.
measuring like how much you're exercising, or measuring how many veggies you're eating a day is so much better of a marker than actual pounds. But again, like making it realistic and making it sure it's something that you can monitor so that you see your success, because that's really important to building a new habit.
Absolutely. And then just kind of going off the, there's quantitative and qualitative ways to measure your success. So even if your goal is around, diet and exercise, if you are looking at a quantitative way, it could be, counting vegetables, counting the amount of colors of the rainbow you're eating each day, or the duration of, your workout. And if you're, increasing that over time, as opposed to, just looking at a number, because that, fluctuates for so many different reasons, as opposed to, just your weight. And, people's body compositions change, especially, if you're strength training. There can be a lot of fluctuations that, might not be what you're thinking in your head.
Yeah, and you could feel better in your body, but the scale is not reflecting it. So you shouldn't really use that as a marker. Sometimes if you're like, so let's say, because the scale is like the classic one, right? There's also the asking yourself why do you want the scale to be the number it is? And then if they say, well, like, oh, this, well, then why that? And they say, go 5 whys back as to why, at least why you want the thing that you're measuring. If it's something like the scale, because it's saying like, oh, I felt stronger in my body. I knew I was taking better. I was more active back then. I knew I felt better. XYZ was before, I made my children and my career more of a priority, or whatever it is that's going on. And so that you can drill down to like, oh, well, you need to make yourself more of a priority. And that's part of the goals that we're building in. So
Absolutely.
awesome. So we got attainable and measurable. Tell me about timeline.
All right. So when we're thinking about a goal, we definitely want to correlate it with a timeline, and, breaking down each action step and creating, a scenario where you're, if you have something, especially if it's going to take a longer time and it's like a project, correlating, maybe a due date with each action step of this goal, whether it's, taking a course, doing the research for that course, registering for that course, studying, and, scheduling an exam. So each of those would be a milestone, for that specific example, and when you want to complete those certain things. So giving yourself a template for, the timeline that you think that this goal can be achievable. And then it's also going to help you keep accountability to yourself. And sometimes people do a little bit better when they have a sense of urgency, assigned to that. So it's definitely a good way to keep yourself on track and to, know what is a realistic time for each, milestone to occur.
On some level, most of us are procrastinators, and there's a lot of research on scarcity and like how when you have this finite amount of something, you'll make a lot more out of it than if you just had, like, if you have all the money in the world, you don't worry about every $2. But if you only have $2, man, you've stretched that a long way. So that's a great example of like using that timeline as a tool to motivate you.
All right. And that just kind of, oh, yeah, you can go ahead if you want.
No, go ahead.
Just a little bit on motivation. So it's going to be the desire to act on a goal when we are, setting out and have really fresh eyes and are looking towards this goal and we're super excited about it and we know that we're going to achieve it. Motivation is going to be really high. And, unfortunately for some people, it does kind of dwindle. So that is when, these steps that we talked about are going to be really important to keep us on track and keep us accountable. And then, if we are able to ingrain some of these habits that we're working on, the motivation isn't going to be, quite as necessary for those goals, because it's going to be something that we're doing a lot more automatically, and it's not going to take so much energy and effort. So a lot of it comes, in the front end, and it's super helpful when we have it, but we also have to have those tools for when it's not quite there.
Exactly, like setting yourself up for success.
All right. And then another important thing is to, visualize what we're trying to achieve. So that's, mentally rehearsing an ideal routine, breaking down every step in our head, so that, we kind of see it before it happens, and, we are calm in that moment when, it is happening, especially if you're, doing a performance or something like that. So this can also be a really good tool to use, and really trying to use all of your senses. Like, if you're in a visualization and say maybe you're an athlete, maybe you're, thinking about, what the crowd is going to be, sounding like, if you're going to have any like smells in the air, anything like that, the more realistic you can make a visualization, the more impactful it's going to be for you. And we kind of did a little bit of this exercise in the beginning when we visualized our optimal vision of health and wellness, and maybe even going back and, adding something that you hadn't thought about, and just, kind of taking a moment to meditate on that and see, yourself in that situation.
Yeah, the great example one of my colleagues uses on a regular is Michael Phelps, the Olympic gold medalist swimmer. One of his events where he still won, I believe, the gold, he was like, he jumped into the water and his goggles filled up with water. And so he wasn't going to be able to see through any of the entire event. And because he had seen himself and done visualizations so often, and also prepared mentally for any kind of obstacle, he knew how many strokes he was going to need to be able to hit the wall and go back. And that's about as much as I know of swimming, but like, so, but he still won despite his goggles being shot out the gate, because he set that intention and visual. When we talk about like our neurotransmitters are kind of like highways, right? And the neural pathways are like highways, so that the more we can build that pathway a little bit before even it happens, which is crazy to think about, but it's really effective way of setting yourself up for success. So if you know you have to go do something before bed every night, see yourself doing it. And then, if you're going to exercise in the morning, see yourself waking up, not wanting to get out of bed, hitting the alarm clock, but putting your sneakers on and get going, and that will help that pathway move forward.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And then, so, when we are, busy in our life, we just wanted to like touch upon some ways to stay on top of our stress. And even these can be some goals that we, create a SMART goal around. So just some things to keep our stress at bay, practicing some breath work and meditation, scheduling downtime for ourselves, just to, get a moment to be, at one with your thoughts and not be running around like a chicken with your head cut off. Cause I feel like, in this day and age, a lot of people are just going from one thing to the next thing and never really having that time to decompress, doing some restorative exercise, eating well, getting plenty of fruits and vegetables, getting enough sleep is definitely a big one. Making time for a hobby. And I know someone else had already started this one, but a gratitude journal. So these are just some, little tricks and tips to stay on top of your stress.
And if one of those speaks to you more than another, that's probably where you might want to start for a SMART goal. Another piece of things is that I love how you phrased it with scheduling downtime, because we have a lot of schedules in our lives. We have work schedules, we have our kids' sports schedules, we have all sorts of schedules in our lives. And self-care is a squishy thing that we think we're going to wedge in between our hard schedules. And it doesn't work that way. A lot of times self-care will fall to the wayside with that. So literally scheduling your workouts, where sometimes you need a personal trainer on hand for that. Sometimes you can like go meet a buddy at the gym, or scheduling a massage, scheduling a meditation class, those things really will, when you make it a hard thing in your schedule, it will hold up against all the other hard things in your day, and be more likely to be able to be attained. So I love how you said, like, make that time in your day so that it actually happens. So that's why I'm gonna start scheduling naps midday.
Yeah. That sounds nice.
Yes. Oh, can I go forward?
Awesome. No, I think that is the end of
Okay.
our
Oh,
deck
awesome.
here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
All right.
So thank you so much, Sierra, for kind of going through all this. It's so nice to take a moment and thank you everyone for taking a moment to like reflect on how we can create some change and wellness and balance in our lives. And it's lovely to have you as a coach in the community to be able to like hold us accountable and be a third party objective person looking at our lives and helping us kind of prioritize what needs to shift first. So thank you so much for all of this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes, we have those blind spots and we're not able to see, what needs to be shifted. Sometimes it
sure.
just takes a fresh pair of eyes.
For sure. For sure. Happy to take any questions if anyone has any. Otherwise, I'm so glad that people are doing journals and focusing on living in the moment and making healthy choices for themselves. So a couple things, like I think there's the setting yourself up for success. So that is a really honest and beautiful question. Thank you for asking it, because that's a lot of people, right? Like there's like how do you even have the vision of like, I could feel better? How do you have the vision of, let's pick a completely different one than that I could get out of debt? That's a really common one, right? People will be housed with a lot of credit card debt and feel really overwhelmed by that. And it's, how do you even see the vision of, I could get beyond this when I'm barely paying my minimum payments or whatever it is that people are struggling with? In those scenarios, setting yourself up with success is really a key piece. So finding some people to be resources to help you see the vision and help you understand. So if you're tired and you want more energy and you can't figure out how to find yourself there, start with your primary care physician and say, I'm tired, I don't feel good. Let's get some basic blood work. Maybe you have sleep apnea, maybe you have a low thyroid, maybe you're missing B12 or iron or a very simple nutrient. That might be a place to start. If it's credit card debt, let's use that as an example, because that's one that we didn't talk about in the wheel, but that can be really oppressive for a lot of people. Finding a financial planner, there's a lot of them that won't charge you money, but will say, okay, look, this one's high interest. And if you attack this first, and even if you only have 20 bucks and it gives you little goals to attack it, those are very meaningful things. So when it's hard to have that belief that it can change, that's not having it like you can't see the vision of it. And so sometimes that's when we need teammates to help us see the vision of where we want to go. I don't know, Sierra, do you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah. And I think, a powerful one can definitely be like visualization and maybe, trying it in a different way or a different level, and maybe starting small, and that vision can change over time. I think is definitely a place to start, to create, a stronger belief and really put yourself in that scenario of, what you're looking for. Because, like you said, sometimes you feel like you know what to do, but you don't quite have that, belief, or you've tried a SMART goal before and maybe you just couldn't, see yourself there. So maybe, starting even a bit smaller and building on that, and, really that momentum might be powerful in that situation, proving
Yeah, the word
yourself you can.
momentum. Yeah, I like that word momentum, because what I'm picturing is like there's a, belief is a couple things. It's empowerment and it's feeling that you can change and shift things, right? And if you're not feeling that you can believe that that's a thing that's possible, it's like a level of learned helplessness. In undergraduate, I did a lot of research on health psychology, and one of the things they would do is learned helplessness was one of the things we studied. And it was on rats where they would take them. So they would take a rat and they would put them on a podium, and then rat would be like nuts to this, and it would jump off the podium, and then they'd put it back up in the podium, and then the rat would jump down again. And then like it didn't take very long for the rat to be like, oh, you're gonna keep putting me up here, I'm just gonna sit here, I give up. And that learned helplessness, which is what that is, the rat's just going to sit there and kind of gives up. It's like, I can't shift this situation, you're going to keep sticking me on the podium, I'm just going to sit on the podium until you make me do whatever I'm going to do. Learned helplessness is the thing that a lot of us have in our lives, whether it's a health condition where we're butting up against walls, or getting a diagnosis or getting help. It's feeling like lack of empowerment. And so in those scenarios, one thing is to call it, like, I'm feeling like this isn't shifting me in any way. And then it's finding resources to help you find that. So if that little mouse had another mouse to help it, then maybe, that's a different from experiment, from humanity, is like we have a lot of resources. So what I'm feeling like is, if you're not feeling like you're shifting, then I would find clinicians or friends or family around you. Humans are very community oriented. We need each other. So find some other people to help you kind of find some power in this situation, where you can find that hope and that vision of where you're going to be, and find that power again. So that would be one thing. As far as body work, so I'm, as a naturopath, I'm trained in a level of body work. And then as the doctors I work with, the osteopathic physicians who actually train at ECHN as well, are also physically trained in phys med, and trained in like essentially body work. And that can be very empowering, because a lot of times we store a lot of feelings and emotions and our experiences in our body, and that can help shift a lot of things as well. So I'm very open to that as well. Whatever modalities help you feel more in your body, more empowered, definitely serve you. That was a long answer. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Tangent on the end of the night. Let's see, what else we got for questions. What relaxation techniques are recommended? I have a bunch of favorites. Do you have any favorites, Sierra?
Yeah, and I think this one can also be really personalized with what, works for you, because everybody, has their brain, get calm in a little bit of a different way, I feel like. But some of my favorites, I definitely feel I've tried, meditating in the past, and what I learned from that experience is that relaxation can actually be a skill, and it can be developed. So when you go out and, try to meditate, it might be a little bit uncomfortable at first. And you have that inner chatter in, when you're trying to just focus on your breath and stuff, you're gonna come back to those thoughts. But I really felt like when I have been meditating, that's when I've been the most calm, the most less reactive. And it does take time, and it is, kind of like a skill that you develop to kind of remove yourself from some of the thoughts you have. And just kind of one of the ways I like to think about it is like it's a movie screen, and you're just kind of watching the movie, but you're not really becoming involved with some of those thoughts. So I think that can be a really powerful one. And I learned a lot of what I know from meditation from an app called Headspace, which I really enjoy. But I just think an interesting part of like relaxation is that it is like almost a skill that you have to train to, learn to shut your brain off in certain situations. And then you might find yourself in a stressful situation and be able to not get so wrapped up in it. So I think that, people find that moment in a lot of different places in their life. It might be, a walking meditation, or, you have a specific place in your house, or, you do something that is going to get you disconnected, maybe like getting a massage. And I just find that sometimes we're actually really shocked when we have those experiences. where we are relaxing, and maybe it's difficult for us to relax because we never have that and we almost don't practice it. So that's kind of some of my thoughts around relaxation. But definitely some, experimenting to do on where you find that state of, peace.
And so for me, I always feel better when I'm productive and yet at the same time need time for meditation. So two of my favorite meditations are moving meditations that I learned actually when I was probably like 16. I started meditating and studying meditation. And one of them is a moving meditation, and I just translate it into dishes. So when I do the dishes, I do nothing else. And so no one in my office is on this webinar right now, but you guys, some people are patients, and so they'll be able to tell my office staff, if all the dishes are clean in the sink, you better be worried that Lauren had a rough day. So a lot of times my office staff will have our lunch and we'll throw the dishes in the sink and we'll all get to them later. But if I'm having a rough day, and actually one was today, I came out and I just quietly wash all the dishes. And any second my brain goes anywhere else, I go, I'm washing dishes. And then it'll wander off again. I'm washing dishes. And think of it as like teaching a puppy how to sit. It's going to sit for a second and then it's going to want to wander away and wiggle off. And you just bring it right back to that space. And so when I'm washing dishes, that's all I'm doing. I'm sitting there. And fortunately, it was after lunchtime. So I got a bunch done and I was like totally grounded afterward. It was amazing. So that is a wonderful way to do that. Another one you can do is laundry. So the other thing, like I'm folding. Next thing, I'm folding. And I'm not resentful that I'm doing the laundry and not someone else. I'm not resentful that I'm doing my front office staff's dishes. I'm actually grateful that I have this opportunity to ground myself in movement and centering with a chore like this. So it doesn't have to necessarily be sitting and being like present with just yourself. It can be that movement and grounding and centering with nothing else in space. Although I do love Headspace as an app. It's wonderful and a great way to ground as well. Movement meditations that are productive are a great way to kind of cram it into the cracks. The other one I love is I have stickers in my office of it. I have one on my notebook that I carry everywhere with me. It's just tactical breathing is like picturing a square. And so we're going to do it together. You breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold, breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. And the truth is you can't be stressed when you're breathing slowly. You bring your parasympathetic system down and calm it down with breath. And so breath work is another great way to be in your body and not have to do the like, all right, stop thinking about stuff. Because if you're thinking about your breath, you're not thinking about the paper that's due, So that's a great way, again, to kind of, they're not the conventional meditate type of things, but they're great ways to relax for sure. And sometimes when people aren't up for exercise, I'll even tell them, try to do some kind of meditation or stretching if you're not up for fully exercising, because it's a way to get in your body and let go of some of the stress. So great question. I hope those are some good answers.
I actually had a quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
So first, thank you for doing this. I'm really excited about this. I did like be less anxious / more content and peaceful as my cloud up aspiration. I really had trouble kind of coming up with things to help that I wasn't already doing that weren't making me anxious. So for example, like I put like eat healthy foods, so list the good foods that would be good, but then I kind of spiral off into, well, what's a good food, or like, go for walks, and I just don't want to leave the house because it's cold out. And like part 2 to that is like, I'm not sure how to make it measurable or a timeline for that, because like some days you feel good and some days you don't, so I'm just a little confused.
Yeah. So, your aspiration was to be less anxious and, have some more like presence.
Yeah, like I put less anxious first, and then I was like, okay, don't be negative. So I put more content or peaceful, like
Okay.
not necessarily present in the moment. That's not the problem. It's
Okay.
more like, like for example, I got anxious about this meeting because I was like, oh God, like what if I'm late? What if I'm the only one? What if there's so many people? I can't talk. So it's like all these thoughts. And then I'm like, now I'm in it and I'm like, this was no reason to be anxious.
Yeah. So, so you're having trouble coming up with some behaviors around, what could bring you closer to that?
Yeah. So like,
Um,
yeah, so like some of them I'm okay with. Like I play my piano music before I go to bed, that works like a charm. But then other ones I'm like not sure about. Like if it's
Gotcha.
a good behavior, so to speak.
Yeah, and a lot of that might be, some experimentation on what you like, what works for you. So a lot of these can be pretty personalized, and it can take a little bit of time to do some brainstorming. I don't know if Dr. Young, if you have any, suggestions on what some behaviors are to be closer to that. And then just kind of piggybacking off the SMART goal, it can be something as simple as, if you do have something that does work for you, creating a goal of, how to keep that consistent in your life.
I think it would be good to say that like we should expand it out to just stress and anxiety in general instead of making it around you in particular, just because we don't know everything else is going on. You and I don't want you to really like make you divulge your health history and personal history over Zoom that's being recorded. But like, so let's do it without that piece of things. Let's do the hypothetical. If someone came to me thinking about anxiety and stress and feeling like their nervous system was amped up on the regular, you'd want to think about, so you don't have to answer any of these questions, just so you know, I'm just kind of giving you ideas of where you would want to look at things. Our body gets stressed if our hormones are imbalanced, if our body gets stressed if our nutritional bucket, so to speak, isn't full. You need a lot of nutrients to make the neurotransmitters to help your body feel calm. So for example, let's use serotonin is a great example because there's a lot of medications that work on it. So serotonin is the neurotransmitter that makes you feel full, helps you reduce pain in your body, but a better part of it's in your brain, and it makes you feel happy, content, calm, and it also facilitates sleep. You need B12, B6, folate, iron, magnesium, and zinc, a bunch of different nutrients for that pathway to work. And if you're not getting enough of those nutrients, and even with the whole foods diet, a lot of people could be depleted of those. That can make you more prone to anxiety. And that's just one neurotransmitter of a bunch of them. If so, what I would do is maybe look at one thing you could do towards an anxiety goal, anxiety reduction goal is a journal of like just noticing when you're more anxious. If is it certain times of day, after certain foods, certain part of your cycle. There's a lot of different aspects that can play a role with why your body's getting into that fight or flight mechanism. The other thing you can do is making sure you're reducing alcohol, caffeine, making sure you're getting good exercise, those piece of things as well. Stress and anxiety, there's so many different aspects of this. It could be something from your childhood, it can be current stressors, that type of thing. So bringing in a therapist or a coach to help you kind of objectively look externally at what's going on to your body as well. So this is one of those ones where if you're feeling stuck, bringing on a practitioner to kind of look at it with you critically would be a really helpful thing. What other aspects of stress could we want to look at? Where you're feeling the stress in your body, what techniques work, maybe a lead to where you want to go and further develop that. I hope that gives you some ideas of where to go with things. But anxiety is one of those ones for sure. Before more than one that I can think of anywhere else, you cannot will yourself calmer. It is
Mhm.
nearly impossible. Like, all right, I'm gonna calm down now. Like your fight or flight or rest and digest continuum, right? Like you're either gonna fight a bear or run away from it or sleep and eat. You cannot push yourself that way. You have to let yourself let go. And sometimes there's so many different components. Like for example, if you have a food sensitivity or something agitating your system, inflammation, that can create neuro toxins and things that are irritating your nervous system that make you feel more jacked up, even when you're otherwise good to go. So making sure you're looking at the whole person, and your GI tract is happy, your nervous system's happy, your inflammation is low, because those are all going to set you up for success when it comes to anxiety and stress. So that life wheel plays a big role as well, that Sierra was looking at with us, because like any piece of that can create stress for your body. That was a long answer, but hopefully it brought you some steps closer to figuring out what else to put around your cloud. Anne-Marie, do you want to unmute and give us your question?
Hi, everybody. I had a question about getting rid of a habit. I found that I had done really well and had started all these great new habits, and things were going really well. And all of a sudden, those old bad habits just reared their ugly head. And you think you're done with them because you have all these great new habits. And I was just curious if you had any insight or any thoughts on how to maybe not get rid of them, because maybe they never go away, but maybe just keep them in check.
Yeah.
Go for
Yeah,
it.
some of the thoughts I have around, getting rid of habits, especially when we looked back at that ABCs, we have that anchor and that trigger moment, and it will prompt us to do whatever, habit we automatically go to at that point. So one thing I like to think about when I'm trying to get rid of a habit is maybe replacing it with something else. So substitution, with a healthier alternative. So I gave an example of, I really like to eat potato chips, and I was eating those every night. And that was one habit that I was looking to break. So I found, a healthier alternative. So my prompt was, I had a long day at work. I was tired and cranky and hungry, and that was what I went to. But making sure that I had something that's going to satisfy me similarly, maybe like, cashews or like a crunchy, salty thing. And then making sure that it's always available to me in that moment where I want to have, the habit that I'm trying to break. So, I think that substitutions can be a pretty powerful, solution at times. And then, a lot of times just going back to our why when we are doing something that is, we don't want to continue doing, thinking about how it's impacting ourselves, how it's impacting others around us, and like connecting it to our vision of health and wellness, and just having that so concrete in our head what our vision is going to be, a powerful way to keep us on track.
I love all of that. And I also feel like a lot of loving kindness and curiosity with yourself when stuff comes back up. And so, for example, I don't know, no one here think about cats right now. What pops into everyone's head right now? A kitty,
Yeah.
right? And so it's one of those things where the like classic like shadow work or shadow self, like I'm not going to be, so for example, for me, like I don't like being a competitive person. I really like everyone, one's better, we're all better, we all support each other kind of thing. So what that means is that there's a part of me that I am squishing down, which is my competitive side, which comes out with checkers with my son. But so like when that competitive checker side comes out, instead of me negative self-talk, like if you end up like being like having a bunch of Oreos after you were like, I cut out sugar, what the heck? Being curious with yourself about like, why is this coming back up? What's going on with me? Like being open with yourself and not in a non-judgmental way is really important to not letting yourself go back into that habit, is just being very loving and be like, oh, this is coming up. I wonder why. I wonder what this is about. I wonder what needs to shift, and being curious instead of judgmental, because judgmental will be that negative self-talk that brings us back into that negative bad habit spiral. And so just curiosity and loving kindness around yourself. Like, I wonder why I'm competitive with checkers with my son, and then substitute it with the game of life or something like that.
That's a great perspective.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. This was so much fun, everyone. Thank you so much. Feel free when you're going to get a questionnaire at the end. And if you would like to have any more talks like this or other topics, make sure you fill out that survey and give us feedback. Chantel, who's quietly involved with this group right now, is happy to help us process this and make sure we bring other topics to you. And Sierra is available to meet with people as well. And we're happy to help you support your goals. I think one of the biggest things, if I could send one message to everybody, it's really like achieving your goals and changing habits is not about willpower. It's about setting yourself up for success and showing yourself like the infrastructure and support that you would need, that we would show for any other project we gave ourselves, So I would just recommend that in the future, is that, like, again, that curiosity of like, what else do I need to make this, more successful in the future? What am I needing from this situation? Be curious and loving to yourself.
Absolutely.
I want to make sure I don't miss anyone's messages because I feel like they're going to disappear in the chat when we leave.
Someone's already asking if there's nutrition and healthy eating. This was their first ECHN chat, and so I'm not sure what's available.
I mean, can tell you can definitely speak to the fact that, like, I like talking about nutrition.
Log on to echn.org/events and look up what all our events are. We have some new ones coming up starting in May, but what's left for this session is at the end of the month on March 28th, we have the bone density, osteoporosis, and how you say the other one, osteopenia.
Oh yeah, that is with me and Dr. Kage. Yes, we're going to be talking all things.
That's coming up at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And we have some other events, regarding menopause and social determinants, and so on. But please log on to echn.org/events, and you will find program offerings there.
We usually do several a quarter on nutrition though, and so that's good to hear that you're interested in that, because we've done a bunch in the past. I'm happy to do more in the future. So yes, stay tuned and more is to come for sure. So thanks everyone for tonight. Good luck with your SMART goals. I hope everyone achieves them well. And if not, don't give up, get some more resources and hold that vision for yourself.
And thank you both for tonight's presentation. It was very informative. Thank you.
Thank you for setting it up. We're super happy to be here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Have a good
great
night.
night.